Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Hey, folks, we got a new sponsor. It's called Buckwild Coffee. What's so special about Buckwild Coffee? Well, a gazillion people go to Starbucks every day and drink coffee. Well, why shouldn't Buckwild Coffee offer you light, medium, or dark roast with free shipping? All you have to do is go to whitetailrendezvous.com, go to shop, and order your coffee, and I'll ship it out for free. Welcome to a December 2018 post-2018 hunt with Seth Porter from West Virginia. Seth is a good friend of mine, Spencer Kersey out in Southern California. And Seth living on the East Coast shows you just how hunting is a brotherhood. And you get together and you just have a common interest. And so because of that, Spencer said, hey, Seth, why don't you get on Bruce's show, Whitetail Rendezvous? So here we are today with Seth Porter. He's known on Instagram as Seth_Xavier. So go to his Instagram account and check it out and follow him. We just had a great session on Facebook Live. You can catch that on Bruce Hutchin, Whitetail Rendezvous Facebook Live right now. It's up. But having said that, Seth, you had one heck of a fall. I think we just need to do a recap of 2018 and that one hunt you had, and you took a nice mature buck. So why don't you share with all the folks all the goings on that shouldn't have made it happen, but it did.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, it was November 3rd. I planned on doing an all-day sit. As everybody knows, any deer hunter knows, first week in November, you got to be in the stand or in a blind or somewhere, hunting. And bucks are starting to rut. They're starting to get aggressive, territorial, starting to move a lot more. I was like, okay, I'm going to do an all-day sit. I got in there just a tad late than what I was wanting to. I got in there around like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and sat until about 5:30 that evening. And I ended up seeing upwards of 25, 26 deer that day. And, there was a couple hours where it was absolutely dead. But, after that, I was like, no, I wonder where the deer are. All of a sudden, I have 8, 9 does just bust towards my stand, and they're going crazy. And then behind those does, I hear this buck going, brr, brr, just chasing them, rutting hard. And I'm getting ready, thinking I'm going to see a buck, and, nothing ever showed up. But just that, I ended up having 4 of those does come up right up under my stand, and they were running hard. They looked like they'd been running for about a mile, hard. They were drooling at the mouth, all that crazy stuff. And I, ended up seeing a couple really nice 2.5, 3.5-year-old bucks. None of them came within range, but, some, I was just letting them go. I knew there was older deer in the area. Anytime you see that many deer in the area in one sit, you're just like, man, you gotta go back, So that was a Saturday, and the next day was Sunday. I had to go to church and then end up having to go to work that day. And I looked at my wife and I was like, I'm anxious. I was like, I need to get back in the stand. And she's like, look, God's going to provide. You just go work, go to church. You get back in there Monday morning. So I end up, doing what I had to do, get in there Monday morning. All my stuff's ready to go. Walk into my stand, and 50 yards from my stand, I don't know if a ratchet came loose or whatever it may be, but all my climbing sticks fell down. All my stand opened up, and my backpack fell on the ground, and I was like, "Oh my God!" So, I just quit thinking. I was like, "I'll just have to do trips. That's just gonna be the easiest way and quietest way." So, I made about 3 trips to my tree, and where I dropped all my stuff. Finally got up in the tree, everything set, got in there pretty smooth and quiet. Ended up dropping my camo jacket on the ground. Had to climb down, grab that jacket, get back up in the stand. And I let it set, everything settled down. About 10, 12 minutes later, I was like, I'm going to do some grunting, just see if I can get anything to come out. hit the grunt a few times, did like a low tending grunt. And anybody who doesn't know what a tending grunt is, it's basically a buck that sounds like he's tending a doe, or he's kind of walking around with the doe. So I did it. About 5 minutes later,
What does that sound like? What does that sound like? Just voice call it.
It's like it's a pretty low, like a low. It's like, I don't even know how. I couldn't even know if I could do it with my mouth. It's really short grunts. They're not long at all. They're just, kind of like that. Yeah, just real low, and real short. But it gets them fired up. I tell you what, it really does. Like, it gets those other bucks going, oh, he's got a doe and I want it, basically. They're in that mindset that, they're ready to go. So let out a few short tending grunts, stood up, looked back, and I see this big old white head just moving up and down. I was like, oh, it's a deer. So I looked through my binos, and he's rubbing this tree all the heck, scraping the ground, and he's working, which is awesome. Like, being out in nature, I said this earlier to you, just watching them do what they do, and being able to watch that with, not on TV, but in real life, it's awesome experience. But he comes within 50 yards and acts like he's not interested, and just tries to start moving back up into some thick stuff. And I use this call to where you can either suck in or blow out. And when you suck in, it's like a softer noise, softer grunt, basically for when the buck's at a closer range. A lot of times, I've even experienced it, a lot of times when you do a full like grunt and you're blowing out hard, it could spook those deer. They don't want any part of it, So it's like a softer grunt. And he did a complete 180 and made a beeline to my stand. Came into about 23 yards, just an easy chip shot. It was supposed to be. I'm filming him. And as he's, coming down to my stand and I'm filming him, my camera shuts off. I'm wondering why it's shutting off while I'm shaking. Turn my camera back on, and it said my SD card was full. So I start deleting all the stuff off the SD card, all the stuff that I didn't need. Finally get him back in the frame and on film. And he makes it, like I said, to 23 yards. And I draw back on him. And as I'm drawing back, I smack my camera arm, and it swings all the way around the tree. So I had to let down, readjust the camera. I got him back in frame, drew back a second time, did it again, not as hard, but smacked the camera again. Finally, that one kind of got to him. He kind of bumped off a few yards behind this big old oak tree, and so I could see the back of his body, and I knew he was going to move forward. So I set the frame right there where I knew he was going to step out at. And as he stepped out, I drew back and I dropped my rangefinder about 23 feet, hit the ground, and he just looked at me, and I'm shaking like a leaf, man, left to right. And I'm trying to put it right in that sweet spot, that little triangle that we call it, right behind the shoulder. And I hit him directly in the shoulder. And it smacked hard. You could hear the shoulder break. And he face planted.
Broadheads you use?
I shot him with they're called Rage Extremes. They're extreme tips, I believe. They're not the new Extremes, but they're one of the first ones that they came out with. They're just the basic Rage Silver, like the silver colored Rages. And every time I shot a deer with them, I've had nothing but great success with it. But a big thing of why I believe I had success that day was because I'm shooting a really heavy arrow. I'm shooting at Easton FMJs, and they're just a hard hitting arrow. They're a little bit heavier. I think my total arrow weight is like almost 500 grains, maybe. So I'm shooting a pretty heavy arrow. Whitetail are really tough. I don't think a lot of people understand that. Whitetail deer are extremely tough and resilient animals. So, I end up put the arrow right through his shoulder. He broke it off and took off. I called my dad and my family, my friends, and my wife, and every last person was like, Seth, we know how you are. You need to be patient. Don't go after the deer. Just get your stuff together and wait till we get there. So I took their advice, got all my stuff together, started walking back to the truck. As I'm walking back to the truck, I'm about 80 yards from my truck, and I look to my right, and that buck's bedded down right there, 7 yards from me, looking right at me. And I just dropped. I sat there, and I'm like, oh, God, I don't know what to do. I didn't want to bump him, but he ended up bumping up, and go running about 50 yards up a hill. And that once he did that, that was his ending point. He was all, I mean, I put it right in his lung. So once he tried to exert that extra energy, he didn't have the air or the capacity to get up that hill, and he just rolled right back down to me and made a real easy drag out for me. But not knowing that as I'm walking out, I actually walked over his blood trail about 2 or 3 different times. When I found that blood, it was really bright red and like mucusy, like when you hit a lung and it comes out like the mucus from the lung, and it's like just really bright red color. And he was definitely pumping out that blood, and I made a really good shot. Thankfully, I pride myself on trying my absolute best to make really ethical and clean shots on animals to give them the quickest death they'll ever have. And as I'm in the stand that day, with that deer in front of me, I was like, the only way, I was like, God, if I kill this deer, it's only because you want me to. And a lot of things happened that day that would have spooked any normal deer, but I got away with it that day, and I've come out successful.
Yeah, you did. I could drop a toothpick and they're gone.
Oh yeah, I mean, tons of things happen, and I've had times where my boots caught on my stand just a little bit, like in the holes, and it kind of sounds like that great sound of metal, and I've had doe blow out the whole woods, just go nuts.
You think about your hunting tradition, and obviously you've got one. So let's talk about who got you into hunting, and share with the viewers, why you are a hunter.
Well, really, what got me into hunting as I was growing up, I had an uncle that he was the hunter, like the main hunter of the family. Like all my uncles hunted, but when you brought up Phil, it was like Phil's. There's times where he took just crazy amount of deer. He had his own property, but he's the one that I really looked up to when it came to hunting. Him and his brother, and my dad was in the military. And I remember a few times where we lived on base, and there was times where we needed food in the house, and Dad was leaving one night and he had a bow in his hand. I was like, Dad, where are you going? And basically he was like, I'm going to go get dinner, and so not only was it not really just hunting for the fun of it, but it was also hunting because we needed food, so that's the kind of where it started for me. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, my uncle put a bow in my hand, and I've been hooked ever since. At that time, when he did that, my dad was deployed in Iraq, so it was kind of like an outlet for me. I'm 10, 11 years old. I'm not running around, which my mom wouldn't let me anyway, but it just kind of mitigated any extra time I would have had. So I spent a lot of time out on my uncle's property shooting those 3D targets he had, and at one point I was like, I'm ready to shoot something. And once I killed my first doe on that property, it was just from there. I was totally just in awe of these animals and hunting them, and growing up, I didn't really understand the purposes of hunting and how it expects conservation. But as I'm getting older, your views change on a lot of things. It's not just trophy hunting. It's not just hunting for fun of it, but you're doing it because it helps the environment, and you're putting food on your table and providing for your family. So I mean, when it comes down to being the history and the tradition of hunting in my family, like it's pretty rich. It's very rich tradition and history within my family, and we all if you don't hunt in my family, it's almost odd, and almost every one of us in my family are hunters. And I was when me and my wife got married back in the summer, before we got married, we got her a bow, and she ended up taking her first doe last year, or first year ever last year, and that experience for me to be able to share it with her was just awesome. It was absolutely amazing for me. I think I was more excited than she was, but I'm a deer fanatic, so when she killed her first doe, and that's another story in itself. I'd love to share that with you later. But when we finally got to the moment where the deer had expired, her whole view of understanding why I put in so much time and effort to make a clean, ethical shot, and you know, why I do what I do. It really changed, and her respect for the hunt and for the animal were just skyrocketed. And that's another way that we, you know, get to spend time together and be closer together. So, you know, you said, you know, the tradition and the history, you know, it's still going. You know, it's super rich and it's super awesome in my family, and to be able to share it with my wife was just a whole nother awesome experience. And hopefully one day I'll be able to share it with my son or daughter when that happens.
No, does your wife want to tell the story? She's sitting right there.
You want to tell the doe story?
Oh, sure. I'll tell a story.
All right, come on up.
Goodness.
You got to introduce yourself.
All right. Well, my name's Summer Porter, his wife.
Hi, Summer. I'm Bruce.
Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Slide over a little bit more.
Oh, okay.
I'll get out of the picture.
Hey, it's me time. Move out.
It is. You're right.
You stay right there.
So
Go ahead.
It was actually, I'd say, one of my first few times hunting. It was my first season ever, so I had been shooting my bow and practicing and learning how, like, the deer stands, like where to shoot it. If it's quartering away, you hit it a little bit further back so you can actually hit organs to make a good shot on it. And it's actually kind of funny because my first season, I didn't have all my correct gear, and it is frigid.
Oh,
I mean, it is so cold.
It's about 8 degrees that day.
Yeah, we were on his uncle's property, Phil, the one that he was talking about, and I was sitting in his playhouse, and I texted Seth, and I was on my phone. I was like, I have to go to the car. I was like, my toes are getting ready to fall off. I was like, there is no way. Like, my toes hurt so bad. I literally was wearing rain boots. So, and Seth said, just give it a few more minutes. Like, we can leave here soon. Just sit it out a few more minutes. A doe comes in. It's early in the season. And so the doe comes in, and I'm getting ready, and I pull back, and...
Well, tell them about what happened before that. The doe and 2 fawns that she beelined.
Oh, that's right. So they saw me in the playhouse because the playhouse has really large windows.
So you're hunting on a playhouse blind.
Basically,
It's
Okay.
His uncle built it, and so the deer that come off the hill are basically eye to eye with me. I'm at the same level, even though I'm off the ground. But compared to the hill, they can see me. And I was like, I turn around and I stop, and she looks at me and she stomps.
Oh yeah.
And the fawns run off, and she blows. So that's like
blew out the whole woods. I was like, there's no way another deer are going to come in, you know.
So thank God there was a doe on the opposite side that didn't even hear it. She comes in, she's a good size, and I'm like, okay, this is my moment. So she comes in about, like, I think it was like 20 yards, and then I think I pulled back, and I think I accidentally clanged the playhouse. So she heard me pull, and I was like, well, I said, I'm going to stay drawn because in case she stops. So she ends up stopping, and I had ranged it earlier, and it was sitting at 33. So I said, okay. And I had at that point a 3-pin shot, so I didn't have to dial my sight in or anything like that. But so I said, all right. I said, she's quartering away. I said, I got to move my sight a little bit back. And so I released it, and I hit her. And at that point, like, it's my first shot, so I'm like, did I make a good shot? I'm kind of like freaking out.
Let me tell you because we're only about 40 yards from each other where I was sitting in a stand. That doe blew, and she took off, and I was like, all right, we'll go ahead and go. And as I texted her that, you text on an iPhone, it shows those little bubbles, and then it stopped showing the bubbles, and all I hear is smack. And I was like, I started freaking out, and I was like, did you hit one? Did you hit? Like, I sent her like 30 messages, and I was like freaking out. And then all she sends back is, I don't know if it was a good shot. So I'm like freaking out, about to fall out of the stand. I call her and I said, did you hit one? She goes, yeah, it was quartering away, blah, 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 So we gave it another 10 minutes. And I got down and I went over there to her, and I'm like, my heart's just like pumping. She's all chill and collected. I'm like, I don't know how you're chill right now. Like, I'm flipping out. And she ends up shooting that deer, and she goes, I saw my arrow come out the other side. I was like, okay, good. You got a clean pass through. I was like, we can find blood and find the arrow. So we go to where the shot was. There's blood on the ground, not a lot, but good enough. We go down the trail that this doe went down, and she finds her arrow. I mean, it's covered, just absolutely covered in bright red blood, like good sign. And I looked at her and I went, that doe's up here laying about 30 yards. I was like, there's no way. So we're going down this main trail. I mean, good blood now. I mean, it's getting good. And we actually end up, the way the property is, we end up back at our car. And she literally walked right past where we parked. And we look up the other hill, and she just saw us and bolted. And I was like, are you serious? That deer is still alive? So we waited like another 10 minutes, and I was like, okay, she definitely has to be dead now. I was like, that's definitely like lung blood, heart blood. And she ended up like clipping the bottom of the lungs is where she got her. And so we go up the hill to go after that doe, and we end up jumping her again, and she's just running back and forth, literally running sprints. And I was like, all right. I was like, let's get out of here. I was like, let her lay and let her die. And we leave for what, an hour and 10 minutes?
Yeah, we went to Tudor's and grabbed us a bite to eat because we were hungry.
We went and got breakfast and warmed up. We came back, and she didn't look like she was anywhere on that hill, so we started tracking her again. We found no blood, absolutely none. And we searched for another 2 hours, or probably an hour. And I said, babe, there's no blood. We can't find her. I was like, I don't know. And she goes, well, just let me go down this little trail. Like, you wouldn't even know it was a trail unless you walked right up on it. Like, it was that small, that small. And she said, let me go down here. So I was like, all right, do what you want. So she went down this trail, and all of a sudden I go, I found her. So, and it was like just a speck of blood on this trail that she followed. And we ended up going down the trail, and she was still alive. After all that, she was sitting there breathing real heavy, like she was, trying to die. So, she fell. But I told her, I said, hey, she's dead deer, no doubt. I said, but go ahead and put another arrow in her. I said, we don't want her to suffer, ever. We're very merciful, and I'm very big on that, is the least amount of suffering possible. I mean, it's still a life being taken, and we respect any life that's taken, So she did, and we ended up getting the arrows, that arrow out of her, and I flipped her over, and I looked where the shot placement was, and I said, Summer, where'd you say you hit this deer? She said, well, I kind of hit her back, and I said, was she quartering away? She said, yeah, and I see the exit hole, and it's perfect behind the opposite shoulder. I mean, just an absolute perfect shot. And I went, Summer, you smoked this deer. I was like, you absolutely made a perfect shot on this deer. And I was like, how do you think you didn't make a good shot? She's like, I don't know what I was. She's like, I just thought, I don't know, And I was like, once that happened, I got super excited because for once she listened.
Hey, I listened.
So, but it was a thing to where she learned why you hit a deer where you hit them if they're quartering away, and it was just exciting experience for us both.
Yeah.
Tell him how you felt once the deer, not when I scared you, but
yeah, you did scare me.
But when when the deer finally died, and what you felt in that moment, and you finally understood, or you understood more why we do what we do.
So, I mean, I'm definitely an animal lover, but I'm I like animals, but I'm not excessively oh my gosh, animals, they're fantastic. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that before my first hunt, I thought of it as hunting, you're providing food, very black and white. I didn't really think about the emotions that go into it, or just kind of the personalities that it takes to go bow hunt, and the people, their mindset while they're doing it, until I finally walked up on the deer. So we walk up to it, and I'm like, Seth walks down, and I'm sitting there, I'm just kind of standing there, and I was looking at her, and I was like, this is crazy. I did this to this animal kind of thing, and it kind of put it, in perspective for me. And Seth ended up smacking me, and he goes, you got her, babe, you got her. And I was like, Dad, it made me angry because I'm looking at her, and I'm like, oh my gosh, let's put another arrow in her. But I think that once I finally let her expire and stuff, it's it's not just an animal. It's, you have to Seth really elaborates on like making the best shot and having, you know, your equipment set up and all this other stuff. But it really makes sense because it's not the best feeling to walk up on a deer that isn't completely, you know, dead yet. So you want to make it as quick as possible and as painless as possible for them.
And I think, and I don't know, but I'm a huge fan of Cameron Haynes, and he puts it best is when he says, you know, even Hollywood and just the anti-hunting community really paints a bad picture of hunters when they make us look like we're just a bunch of guys driving around in our trucks, drinking and just shooting things out of our truck. You know, when I think about hunting, I think about everything that goes into that, from providing, from like I said before, conservation. But it's at the end of the day, it's still a life being taken. You know, and some people might think that's a little serious or that's a little too much. But for me, you know, I love hunting bucks. When I see a buck, I get pumped up. You know. But for me, it's not just a trophy. The real trophy for me is the meat that I got off of that deer, you know. And when I be able to share that experience of how I killed that deer with my wife or my family, you know, that's when I get the most excited, you know. So when I finally realized it more later on, and, you know, I told her, I said, you know, I understand what you were going through in that moment when you were, you know, I'm pretty sure that at that point it almost brought tears to her eyes because it was suffering, kind of. You know, it was a dead deer, but it was suffering to an extent where it was breathing real laborious, labored breathing, and you know, you don't ever want to wound an animal. You want to, you know, make that shot. That's why I always preach it to everybody I talk to. You know, like, Seth, why do you shoot almost every day? Or I did at one point. Why are you shooting every day? It was like, because I don't want to be put in a position where I'm going to put an animal basically with an injury. I want to make sure I kill the animal. I don't want to hurt it. So, you know, and all that, I was so happy that she kind of got to experience all that wrapped into one hunt, you know, and that's how that story went down. And, you know, we ended up, I showed her how to gut it, and, you know,
which is my favorite part.
She loves. She's going to school to be an orthopedic surgeon. So like, she loves
really?
Yeah. She loves anything anatomy. So, you know, when I cut open a deer, she's like, "Ooh, let me touch this. Let me look at that." You know, and I'm just like, "Look, I just want to get it out and get the meat. Like, I don't want to mess with it." You know, she's way more into that than I am. But that's her first deer story, and I tell that story to everybody, and they're like, they always love it, and they always understand. Like, it really explains, you know, why we do what we do, but it also explains, you know, just the whole feeling and emotion that goes into hunting and the memories made and the experiences had.
Yeah,
Summer,
from that.
What would your recommendation? 3 things, Summer, so 3 to 5 things to ladies who'll be listening to this podcast sometime, you know, this winter. What would you tell them about hunting?
First off, well, honestly, I feel like sometimes women might, if they're not used to it or haven't been introduced to it. Growing up, I always wanted to do it. It was always like something that I was interested in to learn more about. But my dad never did it because he worked a lot and he had to provide. But honestly, just go full hands in, like, full send, as he would say. But learn from as many people as possible. Don't feel discouraged by any means, because it's, air quotes, a male dominant sport per se. But I mean, anybody that I've talked to, they've been more than willing to help me out or teach me things. Like, Seth has like 5 or 6 friends who are more than willing. Every time I go shooting with them, they're always like cracking jokes. They're always helping me no matter what. They're teaching me new things. So that would be number 1, I guess. Don't be discouraged in that sense. Number 2, practice definitely. It may take you a while. Learn your forms. Like, I played basketball growing up, like your shot set, like where you can do like number counts, like you have different shots for, like, women typically have like a 2-part like shot. Men typically have a 1. And there are some women who, like, I'm talking about basketball at this point, but who do shoot 1. So it's kind of depending upon the person. Get to know what works best for you, learn your breathing pattern, etc. So definitely practice no matter what.
Like, I tell you, the biggest thing that helped Summer was when I was teaching her good form on shooting archery. She works so good with numbers. Like, it helps her calm down and collect her thoughts and understand. So drawing back her bow, that was 1. Putting her finger over the trigger, that was 2. And 3 was getting the pin set, and then 4 was shooting. And once we got, like, and this was just in a calm setting, not shooting at a deer, but just shooting at a target, just working on your form where it became muscle memory. Once we got that done, I mean, she was hitting dimes at 30, 40 yards, and and that was a moment for me where me as a teacher, like, I had to understand not anybody can just pick up a bow and be ready to go, or not anybody's been shooting since they were 10 years old, but that was a big thing, and I've learned a lot of things from her too, that I realized that I was doing that was bad habits, but just it's the biggest thing I say is it doesn't matter if your bow's 20 years old or a year old. If it's comfortable for you, shoot it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you like it and it's comfortable for you, shoot it and just practice. And she's a perfectionist. I'm a little bit more giving on certain things, but she is a super perfectionist. And I had to show her, like, hey, archery is fun. It's not. We're not out here trying to win $100 grand. We're not.
Everything to me is a competition.
Yeah, and which we're super competitive. I grew up playing football. She grew up playing basketball. So we're competitive people. But once we're in this kind of expertise area, it was like, hey, we're just shooting in the backyard and we're just trying to show you how to shoot.
Yeah.
Just breathe. Like, just have fun. If you miss every single time you shoot, that's fine, but you're having fun. That's what matters. And, that's when she started to calm down, and then she started shooting better than I did, and all my friends were making fun of me because my wife was shooting, 30-yard dimes, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. So yeah, just like me, I have an issue sometimes with overthinking things, and like you said, I'm very perfectionistic. So whenever, like I say, I'd shoot at a target or something, it would be you're shooting at the bullseye of a ring or something. But one thing that really helps me is, say you're shooting a 3D target and it's a deer, it gives you a bigger area. So it gives you more room for error per se, but you can still make a good shot. So instead of just trying to nail that one spot every single time, I noticed that if I gave myself a little bit more room, I was making much better shots more consistently over time.
Yeah.
And number 3, honestly, make sure that you're active and that you're fitness, and that you're exercising and doing all those things. That's something that I really love to do. He and I work out a lot. But for instance, I've been working on getting my poundage up, and one day we hope to do elk hunts, etc. And so if you're wanting to shoot big animals such as those, which are probably 900,
yeah,
1,000
he
pounds.
lives out there. He would know.
I live in Colorado.
Yeah,
okay, that's awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
And she's saying that's because she's shooting about 40-some pounds. You want Cameron Haynes is shooting 80, and the only reason why he's shooting that much is because he wants to do a clean pass through. He's wanting the most ethical shot. And that's where that kind of comes in is, well, why do you want to raise your poundage if you're comfortable at 50? Well, when I hit an animal and I'm putting an arrow through it and I put it straight through the heart, I want it to come out the other side. I want it to be able to know that I gave it the quickest, cleanest death it's ever going to have.
And one thing, just to interject, the weight of the arrow is more important than the velocity arrow.
Yeah.
It's just like high speed bullets, a swift bullet, going 4,000 feet per second. Okay. Yeah. A tiny blade of grass will knock that off. You shoot a 375 and it's not even going to flinch.
Yeah.
Because one, it's got the mass and it's got the velocity with the foot pounds at the end. So, especially hunting bigger game, you want to hunt with a heavy arrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
You really do.
Yeah.
So the kinetic energy.
That's why I shoot. I'm thinking, like I told you earlier, almost a 500 grain setup. It's like a 100 grain point. So, 500 grain. I'm like I said, I'm shooting this Easton FMJs and they're drilling. They're smacking hard. And that's probably that, or it's probably why, I get great pass throughs on these deer, or, and, I'm breaking bone is because I'm shooting that heavier arrow, and that's what I want. I want the arrow to hit as hard as possible.
Let's go to the part of the show where what's your one big thing that you wish you knew today, Seth, that you know today that you didn't know 5 years ago? So what's the one big thing?
If there's one thing that I wish I knew more back then, it would probably be, you said 10 years ago?
5 years ago, 3 years ago, doesn't matter.
We'll do 5, because I started peaking, or not peaking, excuse me, but my interest started getting more and more into hunting around 5-6 years ago. It would probably be, it's two things. One, it's called hunting and not killing for a reason. We're not going out with, you go out for the experience more than you going out for to killing something. And that's one thing I've had to learn over the past few years is that's why, it's called hunting. You're doing everything you possibly can to get as close as possible to these animals. But these animals are super smart. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to be, you're not going to have that mature buck coming at 20 yards, stand broadside, and basically ask you to kill it every single time you're on the stand, and that's kind of a mindset that I had at first when I started bow hunting a lot more. Another thing is really just taking the time and finding deer sign. I was just kind of, when I was growing up, it was like, okay, we put feeders out, we put cameras over the feeders, and, that's how you do it. Which there's nothing wrong with that at all. I don't find there's anything wrong with that. But being able to go out in the woods, find your main deer trail, being able to find a rub line, being able to find, buck scrapes, being able to find where your main trail is, that all your does are coming in, and knowing that when it comes time for the rut, those main trails are going to be used, and that's where the bucks are going to be doing because they're, chasing those hot does. Just a lot of things like that is, if I could give anybody advice to start early, it's going and putting your time in the woods. Really start looking for those trails and start taking the time to say, okay, if these trails are being used the most, this is where I want to, look at, go in and find the water source and the food source and, and the cover. And I feel like this has really pertained to me a lot this year, is because I was hunting a lot of new public land that I wasn't familiar with. I saw overview maps of it. I used Basemap as an app. It's basically like another version of Onyx, but it shows you just, all kinds of different things, water sources and cover and, just different things. I really have sharpened my skills a lot this year, and I have so much more to sharpen and so much more improvement to do. But if that's one thing two things I could say is, just really take the time and put in your effort and put in your scouting. Don't just basically throw corn out and expect, and hope for the best. Go put in the time and find those deer.
And thanks for that. And as wrapping up, what are your 3 things you want to leave for your fellow hunters about getting ready for 2019?
Oh, man. I think 2019, I'm going to start by saying this. 2019, I think, is going to be a very big year for me, because I'm starting to step out into a lot of things that I've wanted to do, but I never really, I'll just go ahead and say, didn't have the guts to do. And, I'm in February, I want to start my own podcast. I want to do what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, I love that idea of talking hunting. And so in February, I'm starting my own podcast. By next fall, I plan on having basically my own merchandise company, hats, shirts, that kind of thing. I'm planning on putting all my hunts that I filmed this year on YouTube. And it's not that the fact that I'm trying to be famous or trying to be well known. It's just I want to take my passion and put it out there, and I want to ignite a fire in other hunters or other people who've never hunted, and I want them to be like, oh man, I got to try it because look how much fun he's having. Look at the way he views hunting. And it's not just another guy just being a redneck. It's somebody who takes the time and puts the effort in hunting these beautiful animals. Spring's right around the corner in a few months. I'm going to be going hard at some gobblers. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I want people to be able to see that and be like, oh man, like I want to be able to harvest my own meat, turkey, deer, bear, whatever it may be. So, there's three things, I said all that to say this, there's three things I could to give to my fellow hunters in different states or whatever is go out and make sure you're enjoying the grind and the process of the hunt. If it takes, I scouted probably, I want to say a total of a month collectively, walking the areas that I wanted to hunt, putting out cameras, finding the trails, like I said earlier. Like I enjoyed every single bit of it. Now, in the summer when it was 95 degrees, did I enjoy like walking up hills with stands on my back and stuff? No, not really. But it was the fact that I was just putting in the time and I was enjoying the grind and the effort to put towards, hunting these beautiful animals. So also is, when it comes down to killing a mature deer, don't think I really want people to hunt to what makes them happy. If they want to trophy hunt for the rest of their life, I want them to do that because that's what brings joy to their heart. For me, it's really not about a mega giant. It's just if it's an older deer that's peaked, that's had a chance to breed and been around for years, then I want to do that because I know he's not that old being dumb. He's a smart deer or that doe's smart, so I love the challenge and I love the effort, like I said, the grind that goes to it. But another thing I really want I want people to do is I want them to start encouraging more and more people to go hunt and not putting them down if they do kill, a 2.5-year-old buck or a doe or whatever, just because your views are differently doesn't mean you need to discourage them. Because a lot of times I feel like people will go do that and then they'll just hang it up and be like, well, I'm not killing 180-inch deer every year like so-and-so or this and that or, and take advantage of your public lands. Like if you have public land in your state, absolutely take advantage. That is for you to go out, explore, and enjoy as a part of, where you live. And don't think just because you don't have private land that's got 190-inch deers or deer on it every year or anything like that, that you don't need to be hunting because, you got plenty of public land to go out and scout and enjoy, and to bring along maybe a brother or sister or son or daughter, whatever it may be, and, make more memories and share experiences.
And thanks for that. Now, what's Fieldcraft? What's your logo?
So Fieldcraft Survival is based out of Prescott, Arizona. It was started by two former Green Berets, Mike Glover and Kurt Hohan. They both started this company basically to get the citizen ready or prepared for a worst case scenario. It's anything from overlanding to self-defense to survival. And if you're stuck out, if worst case scenario happens, you take a broadhead to the leg or you take a gunshot or something, whatever it may be, doing what you got to do to survive until the help comes. There's so much that it encompasses that it's not just self-defense classes or this or that. It's just so much that can go into it. And I just go back a couple of months ago. I want to say it's probably been about 5 or 6 months, maybe. Mike, the creator of Fieldcraft, he posted something about him shooting a bow, and he said, I shoot this bow. What do you shoot and why? And I followed all of them because I really liked the whole thing. And I said, I shoot this because my family's been shooting it for years, and I've always trusted them. Bow hunting's my passion. And so he commented back, and when he commented back, I was like, I freaked out because I kind of fangirled a little bit. It was just somebody who I really admired, and I still do. And he was like, hey, message me, we need to do something. And I was like, okay, awesome, So I messaged him, and after that, he was like, I want you to become, an ambassador for the company, and I want you to teach people, or educate people, rather, not really teach them, but educate people through your social media and stuff about ethical hunting and, why you do what you do and why what's wrong and right when it's, done out in the field. And a lot of different things. And, being a part of them has really opened up doors for me in a sense of kind of giving me confidence in areas I didn't have. And it's, kind of said, hey, look, if this is what you want to do, then do it, and not saying that I wouldn't have done it without them, but definitely being a part of a great group of guys and gals like that has really given me some kind of purpose in certain areas, and it's been really awesome, and I'm blessed and thankful to be a part of them. If y'all want to check them out, it's Instagram.
Go ahead.
On Instagram, it's Fieldcraft Survival. They also have a Fieldcraft Survival Fit page and a Fieldcraft Mobility. But all great people, all great guys. Get a hold of them. They're also on Facebook. Get a hold, or just go on, check them out, follow them, and they put out some awesome content. It's really awesome.
Now, how does somebody get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me. I'm not very important, so if any DM I get, it shows up on my phone. It's not like I'm getting 1,000 DMs a day, but if you want to get a hold of me, my Instagram is Seth it's all undercase or lowercase, excuse me, Seth_Xavier, Xavier. DM me, whatever. I reply to just about every single DM I get. If you have questions about bows or arrows or hunting or whatever it may be, I'll do my best to answer you, talk with you. And if I don't know anything, I'll definitely get you in touch with somebody who does know what they're talking about.
And with that, folks, we're going to wrap up this episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. It's been a pleasure to be with Seth Porter and Summer Porter and hear some great hunting stories. But even more than that, Summer, come say goodbye.
Say goodbye, baby.
Bye, guys.
So it's just great to see couples hunting together. And with that, we're going to close this segment of Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.